Good morning. Day 5, January 25th from Quartzfest, Quartzsite, Arizona. Yesterday started off completely clear and then clouded up in the afternoon. Looks like we may have a fair number of clouds today. We'll see how it goes, but we'll see what I can dig up today. And by the way, just like to, if you're liking these videos, please press the like button and share. And if you're not a subscriber, please subscribe to my channel. Peter, I forget your call, Peter.
N6ERL.
ERL. He's got his, everybody's listening to the net this morning. Oh, he's got his badge. Peter, N6ERL. Peter, unfortunately, has to leave us today.
Yeah.
He has other commitments, so he's packing up his camper here and ready to hit the road.
Yeah, in a short while, I'm going to wait until N6BT starts his presentation to go say hello.
Oh, okay.
He's a friend of my brother's.
Oh, okay. Tom
Schiller,
yeah. Yeah, Tom Schiller.
Yeah.
All right, Tom always gives a talk at the antenna forum, at Pacificon, and one of the things he says, all antennas work. Some work better than others.
That's right.
As you found out today or this week,
yes,
right?
Sir, absolutely. Yeah.
So have to go home and experiment some more.
This is true.
Yeah. Well, have a good drive, and after you see Tom.
You bet.
All right.
Thank you.
73.
Thanks for the invite.
Okay. We enjoyed having you here. So I had a comment about what happened to the puppy. So here it is with Ham Ma'am, and this will now be a permanent fixture of the Quartzfest setup. So this is a session about Stop the Bleed with first aid. I'm not going to be able to hear very well because the generator running in the RV around here. But it looks like he's passing out some first aid kits for people who aren't prepared.
We'll share everything that's in here. We'll have plenty of time to do that. I guess I'll get to the comedy part too here. So who needs a hand? Hands? I ran out of gloves, so I also made feet. Okay, if you open up your first aid kits, and there may be more than one of these in here. Let's see.
Okay, folks, I can tell you right now the Fox is active. It's out there doing its job on 146/550, making all kinds of noise.
It's 5555.
Huh?
It's 5555, right?
Yeah, 146/555 is the frequency. It's putting out roughly 75 milliwatts, so you're going to have to be right on it.
Oh.
I'm not kidding you. I drove by it earlier today to check to make sure it's working. It's working. I had to be within, from here to that van, that red van over there, that's how close I had to be to hear that thing. So.
Can you give us, like if we've walked a mile, have we gone too far?
It is within the confines of this camp. Somewhere it could be that way, that way, that way, that way. So what I would recommend that you do, it looks like everybody's dressed appropriately, and I'm glad for that. What I'd recommend you do, maintain radio contact with each other, because I'm not going out. I'm going to stay back in my camper, turn the AC on, and I'm going to sit by the radio and listen to the signals for you folks.
Now, there's no problem to transmit on 555.
You can transmit on 555 if you wish to use it.
Okay.
No problem whatsoever. You're not going to hurt anything.
What's interesting here is these are scratch made. This is an elk. That's an arrow antenna.
Okay.
And both the elk and the arrow are available
If you come upon the signal, let everybody else in the group know.
I'm gonna go direction.
I'll be listening.
I'm gonna go that way.
Everybody go a different direction now, huh?
Hey, I wanna not.
Well, you hear anything?
Not yet.
No, it's not up there.
Not there either.
Have fun.
Thanks.
I'll be. Well, the transmitter hunt, people can't hear it from where they start, so people have wandered off in every which way direction. Nobody that I know of seems to have heard it, so I'm not wandering all around the desert here. So probably hear what the results are during happy hour. But you saw the beginning, and there's about 8-10 people out roaming in all different directions out here trying to find it.
I give a talk to us on solar. So without further ado, Rebel, take it away.
Welcome everybody. Welcome everybody. Rebel Miner. Been a nomad for about 15 years. I guess to get into the solar, how I got started in solar, I worked, when I got out of the military, I did a bunch of contract work down in South America. And a lot of cartel work and stuff like that. And that's where I kind of noticed a lot of these people living on solar out in the jungles. And the rigs that they had set up, you know, with limited funds and stuff like that. So when I got back to the States, I kind of got involved with a lot of illegal grow farms and stuff like that. We're paying big dollars and installing solar for their farms. They're all legal nowadays, so I kind of got by on the system a little bit. So what I want to talk about mainly first is safety. That's like usually the thing that everybody kind of bypasses when they're doing solar. I've got a buddy that'll install it for, you know, such amount of dollars, and then the rig burns down. It's way worse than propane, it's way worse than gas, and it's way worse than electricity in your home. There's so many ifs and buts because you're moving it down the road if you're not stationary in like an off-grid cabin or something like that. Wires don't like to move, batteries don't like to move, none of that stuff likes to move. There's 3 different battery types that most people are most common with. You've got the lead acid, AGMs, and lithium. The biggest problem with lead acid is obviously shorts, and they just don't work real good, and they're super heavy. AGMs, you get a little bit better. Lithium are like top of the line. Everybody wants lithium until you don't want lithium when they catch fire.
That's lithium ion. Why lithium phosphate?
Both of them are very dangerous. One will burn through the floor in your rig and the other won't. It'll just set your rig on fire. So basically what I'm going to cover is what not to do. Everything needs to go off your wiring. That's where most of the mistakes are made, is on your wiring. Everybody cuts corners on those. You know, I've seen so many rigs that are built out, and you know, I've spent $5 or $6 grand on these controllers and these inverters, but then the wire, you know, it's just cheap, low-grade wire, copper clad, which never should be in a solar system. Talk about controllers a little bit. A lot of people I've seen over the past couple of years, they're getting more and more solar on top of the roofs. The more solar you get up there, the more controllers you're going to need. I know you're thinking, well, no, I can just buy a really expensive big controller. That's fine and dandy, but a lot of times if you'll just spend your bang on splitting the solar up on your roof into different components, in other words, have multiple solar controllers, you can get by and have more amps coming in. The less solar controllers, the more amps you got coming in. Or you lose when you start running in series and parallel and different things like that, you start losing amps. So if you can get by and have more solar controllers, you get by with more amps coming into the battery, less amps in each wire. And also if you have something that breaks on your rig, it's just temporary. You got one little component that's down versus your whole entire system, if that makes sense.
So AC, what's going on? What's happening?
Nobody. I mean, nothing. I'm trying to stand up.
Yeah, watch out for them rocks. They'll trip you up.
Uh-oh, you're filming me.
I'm filming you.
Oh, gosh. Well, the doctor said I was in pretty good shape for the shape I'm in.
Okay.
but he gave me one word of advice.
Yeah.
He said, AC, don't stand too close to the edge of the curb on trash day. And that's all I got to say about that.
Thank you.
All right. Now, where's that going to go?
There's all the latecomers getting their tickets to win the Baofangs.
Welcome to happy hour for day 5 of Quartzfest 2024. Anybody want to guess what our total attendance is so far? 662. Last year we had what? 658 last year, I think it was. So we've exceeded last year, and we're not done taking signage yet. We're taking them till noon tomorrow. Has anybody lost a handheld radio? I mean, I know somebody's lost it because it was found. Is anybody here missing a handheld radio? Yes, it's black.
Good afternoon, everybody. KC7OMD here. There was a lot of folks out there looking for that fox, and I gotta admit, it was hard to find. That baby's got just a little tiny bit of power. That's one fox that don't want to be found very easily, as a few of you can attest to. We had roughly, I think we had 11 people out there looking. Does that sound about right? I know we had some folks come and with their own antennas, and there was some really impressive looking equipment out there. I really appreciated seeing all that. That kind of interest I didn't think there was, so it was great. There was a gentleman that found it first, actually. If you could stand up to be recognized, what was your call sign?
H2.
He actually found it before anybody else did, but there was another younger couple that found it. Where are you guys here? I guess, oh, there they are. They're in the back over there. They actually found it about the time I went to check to make sure it was still working, and it was still working. But the participation was great. Those that had antennas that they borrowed from me, there was only 2 of them that went out of the bunch I had. You're welcome to keep those antennas as a souvenir of the 2024 Quartzite Fox Hunt. And we're going to raffle off a few more of those here yet tonight. Thanks to all that participated. Have a great afternoon.
Thank you. And the gentleman that found it first, can you stand up again? Could you come up here? We have a prize for you. A Baofeng UV5R from Tumbleweeds Rat Pack.
Stu. So what'd you come back with?
Well, let's see. I got another Baofeng.
Another Baofeng.
Never have too
That was for the fox hunt.
Fox hunt.
And then, yeah, today's raffle.
You got a solar controller?
Yeah, 45-watt solar controller.
Wow.
And
Amp.
he's got the thermometer for it.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I wasn't expecting that. So now I'm going to have to buy a solar panel.
This free stuff ends up costing you money.
Yeah.
Just the beginning.
Yeah.
Great fun.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
And you won that?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Cool.
What is this thing?
Yeah. You guys got it rigged or something?
I don't know. Really
They
strange.
weren't even coming until I told them.
Yeah.
He talked us into it.
Yeah, you gotta
I
go.
wasn't going, and he said, "Why don't you go? It gives you 2 chances."
Yeah, get another ticket. Yeah.
Another chance to win. She won.
Wow. It's pizza night. So Amy's got 4.
Unfortunately,
another
there's
4.
a couple bites taken out.
A couple bites. Who was doing that?
I don't know.
You don't know?
Yeah.
So the pizzas were provided by Tom and his family, and they left yesterday, but they ordered these a couple days ago and paid for them. and they had all sorts of battery problems and leaks in their rig. So thank you. Thank you, everybody, Tom and his family, for our dinner tonight. Just sat through the presentation with Kurt, K7ZOO, about coordinating with the Ukraine. And it was a very good session, and I think I recorded pretty much the whole thing. So that's all that is now from this point on to the end of the video. It's quite long, and I think you'll find it really interesting. You know, he talks about the thousands and thousands of plastic parts that he's printed. He has 6 Prusa printers running. He's been doing this for, I don't know, well over a year. So it's very interesting, and I think you'll enjoy it. You know, grab a cup of coffee, you know, pause this, grab a cup of coffee, and listen to it. It's I took a bunch of stills that he has photos here, so you'll really want to press the like button for me on this one.
And my impression of Quartzfest so far, it's kind of like I think it's like Burning Man for hams, right? Without the sex and the drugs and the psychedelics and all that. So.
How do you know about that?
Yeah. I've seen it on YouTube. So let me, I wrote down some notes, right, because there's no video. I've given this presentation once with the help of slides and pictures. Went pretty well last week. But without pictures, I'm going to have to, you know, use my voice. I did bring along a poster board of pictures that you're welcome to come up afterwards. And I also have some parts that we've shipped over there that I'm going to hand through. And one of the bags has my, I don't want to call it a business card when you're retired, but it has my card in there, and you're welcome to take that for what it's worth.
Who are you?
So I'm going to introduce myself. That's the second bullet. So this is just a preamble. So it's all in order. But if you do have questions, feel free to jump in. So thank you, Bill. Yeah, especially the sharp. So an introduction. Who am I? My name is Kurt Laumann. My call sign is Kilo 7 Zulu Oscar Oscar. I live in Tucson, Arizona. I was first licensed in 1975. Was active in ham radio throughout high school and a bit in college. My studies are in physics and optical engineering. I went to a small liberal arts college in Wisconsin, and then got a master's degree in optics from the University of Arizona. I worked at Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory as a physicist for about 15 years. It was fascinating. Then moved to Tucson and worked for Raytheon for about 15 years or so. And my expertise at Raytheon was primarily process engineering, fixing problems, optimizing processes, working in a variety of technologies, welding, batteries, optics, coatings, circuit cards, components, adhesives, etc. It was a fascinating time of my life. I really enjoyed it. And after Raytheon, I thought I wanted to give back to society, and so I went to teach high school. I got my teaching certificate, and I went back to teach high school algebra. I was teaching Algebra 2 and college algebra for 9 weeks. It was the worst professional decision I made in my life. It was awful. Oh my God, it was so bad.
So much for giving back.
It was Central High School in Tucson, and the students, their Algebra 1 teacher had just given them worksheets to work on. All they did was cheat the whole year, so they didn't learn a thing, and I got them for Algebra 2, and it was a disaster. You know, like at one point, I had the football coach in my classroom, right? And he was saying, you know, what can we do to move these students forward? Because I had like 5 of his starting line in my 5th period. And then I had the principal in my classroom too. You know, again, what can we do to move these people forward, these kids forward? This talk wasn't about to complain about public education, but I didn't have access to a copying machine. Right, my principal would not give me direct access to a copier, so I would go down to Staples every night at 8 o'clock and make my own copies. I didn't have a smart board, all the other math teachers did. And I used an overhead projector. I was the only one in the school who knew how to use an overhead projector, apparently. And my principal wouldn't give me transparencies. You know, so it was a nightmare. Only job that's made me cry, literally. 6 o'clock in the morning, got in 5th week, broke down. It was bad. So fast forward to about half year, and I became the trustee of the University of Arizona Amateur Radio Club, and I started giving back in a different way. Right, and that's one of the things I enjoy about our hobby, is it has this culture of mentoring and teaching and giving back to society. I think it's very special. I've done so many different things in my life, and this is the only hobby that really has that culture. So, University of Arizona spent about 3 years revamping that club, put in all new antennas. This is really bad. Right there.
Yeah, that works better. Wrap your hand around it right there. There you go.
1, 2, 3. Oh, okay. Is that?
Yeah.
Somebody.
1, 2. Okay. So it's a battery problem.
No.
My hand's gonna get tired. Okay. Oh, thank you. That makes more sense. So installed all new antennas, new VHF UHF transceiver. Got a new president in, a new club advisor. It's rocking. It's really doing well. So I handed that off last year. But a couple years ago is when this story starts, what you're here for today, when I started to work with the Ukrainians. Okay. Just to give you kind of the instant high-level bottom line of what we've done, and when I say we, I mean primarily me and some Ukrainians. I've shipped 43,000 3D printed parts over the last 18 months, 350 transmission lines, and a total of 70 packages to Ukraine. And questions are welcome throughout this. I think I said that, but I don't have any pictures. I might be missing some details. The slides sometimes help me remember things, but if you have questions, feel free to raise your hand. Yes?
What's in the package?
Primarily 3D printed parts, transmission lines, and parts for drones.
You already said that. What do they do?
Okay, that's really the subject of the whole talk, so we'll get there. But thank you, that's a good question. Yes, Ron.
You probably have that on there, but how did you get started doing this?
That's the third bullet, which is my next bullet. Great, thank you. I coached him last night really well tonight. Thank you, Ron. So initial contact with Dimitro. Uniform X-ray 3, uniform. I made that in February 22. So how do you reach out? How do you contact? How do you help somebody in a war zone? Like, how do you do this, right? And I did not intend to be here at this point in my life. I wrote one email to Rig Expert, right, the company that makes antenna analyzers, and they're located in Kyiv, Ukraine, capital. And all I wrote was, hey, I'm thinking about you, right? I'm another ham. I care about you. I'm thinking about you. I hope you make it through this okay. And I think the next thing I did was bought an AA600 because I thought they were going to go out of business. I mean, literally, I got on that week. I said, man, they're going to be gone. The Russians are going down the highway, and they're going to be gone, right? So I wanted to get my AA600. So, and Dimitro wrote back, and Dimitro. UX3UU is the customer service representative. You want probably one of one. He's the guy. When you have a technical question for Rig Expert, he answers them, right? So he speaks a variety of languages. He's got the right personality for it. Super human being, just really nice, technically pretty sharp, and he and I get along really well. So that was, I think, just shy of 1 month of 2 years ago. So, and he and I really work well together. We get along, and I texted him a photo of my campsite last night, so he'll get a kick out of that when he gets up this morning. Then also, I've worked with Nick in Zaporizhia, Uniform Romeo 6, Quebec Victor. Nick is the president of the Zaporizhia Amateur Radio Club. Nick and I met because Nick was advertising, I mean, widely, send us equipment. You might have gotten one of his emails or seen him on Facebook, but he is a good salesman, right? He's a good representative of that club, and he was so good, I almost thought he was fake, and so I approached him kind of carefully, I would say, and he wrote me back, and I still was like, is this guy for real, and so I finally connected with him, and he's for real. He leads a very active club. They repair equipment for hams who have lost their stations over there. And I wanted to share just one story about Nick, because it definitely, oh, thank you, Bill. Let's move this over here. Thank you. So one good story about Nick, I was kind of embarrassed. I mean, my technical skills are okay, but I really can't repair equipment. That I can solder and I can do some troubleshooting, but nothing like what they can do. And Nick asked me, so what do you do when your 2-meter radio breaks? Like, I throw it away. I could buy a new one. I mean, I don't know. I can't fix it. He showed me a picture of a Starlink satellite terminal, right? And some shrapnel had gone through it. He showed me a close-up of the circuit board. They were repairing it, right? I mean, these guys are amazing. They're really, really good. So that's Nick. And then through them, I worked through them through thousands of parts and a couple dozen assignments, 3 major projects, and they introduced me to the drone group. And I got introduced to the drone group, and I don't really know their names so much, but there's a guy that they call the Candy Man. And the drone group specializes in candy, delivering candy to the opposition, and so I work with the Candy Man as well. So I wanted to revisit kind of the motivation to help Ukraine. And I'm going to tell you a story. I want you to picture, a top contester station. And his call sign explicitly, Uniform X-Ray 3, Uniform Alpha. Imagine, a 100-foot tower, right? And then put it next to it, the baby tower at 75 feet, and then a smaller tower at 50 feet, right? So he's got multiple towers, beautiful station, great contester. He's in his early 80s. He's one of the founders of Rig Expert. Okay, so he's got a little bit of coin, and he's doing pretty well. Now I want you to picture the tower, right? Crumpled, folded in half. All the antennas on the ground, smashed, right? I want you to picture his house, which had to be at least 6,000 square feet. It almost looked like a stone mansion, right? And you look at the windows, and you can see soot over every single window. And then you walk inside, and you go up to a shack, and what used to be, 3 tables of equipment, across the wall, it's all rubble and ashes, right? Nothing there, absolutely nothing. So Russians came in, and they must have had instructions to literally destroy every ham radio station they could find, because those would be used for communications, right? Just terrible, just amazing. So, kind of having set the stage, let's talk a little bit about the main 3 areas of collaboration. So I've worked on antenna systems with them, I've worked on battery chargers, and I've worked on candy, okay? And I've got examples of the hardware here, and I'll start that going around in just a little bit. One of the questions I do get, which nobody's asked yet, is how do you ship things over there, right? And that was one of my big concerns when I got into, like, how the hell am I going to get stuff over there? I have no idea. Like, can you ship there? Does the United States Post Office ship to Kyiv, Ukraine, or how do you do it? And are there airplanes flying there well, no, airplanes can't fly through the air because it's a war zone. So how do you get stuff there? So I did some research, and one of my colleagues in Tucson helps at the university with startup companies, and one of the startups was a Ukrainian. So he introduced me to a Ukrainian, and we had lunch, and he said, hey, you should be using a reshipping service. And there's one out in LA called Meest, M-E-E-S-T, and there's one in New Jersey called Ukraine Express, right? My wife's used Meest. You could try Ukraine Express. They're both pretty good, but they will actually get your packages into Kyiv and Zaporizhia. And just to give you perspective, if you live in Tucson, consider Tucson like Zaporizhia, and then go down to Green Valley, and Green Valley's on the other side of the front. So only 20 miles away from some of my packages is where the Russian front is. So they're really close. So Meest and Ukraine Express both get packages in there. I use Ukraine Express, just kind of randomly chose them. They're located in New Jersey. So I'll take a box, I'll take a flat rate shipping box that's 12 by 12 by 6 that you get at the United States Post Office. And for $20, I'll ship it to New Jersey. And inside of there has to be 2 customs forms and a check. And that's my check. And that check is either for $20 or $45,
depending on how quickly they need the material. If it's going to go by boat, I write them a check for about $23. If it's going to go by air, it's probably around $45 or so. It depends on the weight as well. The sea shipments take 34 days on average, and I actually could give you the standard deviation of the 70 packages. I tracked them all in a spreadsheet. So 34 days by sea and 17 days by air. So when one of these boxes leaves my house, I can say with pretty good confidence that in about 17 or 18 days, Dimitro's going to get it in Kyiv. It's amazing, right? So they get these packages. Let's say it goes by sea. It leaves New Jersey. I've got 2 boxes floating over the Atlantic right now. It'll go to Gdansk. I apologize if I'm butchering the name. Poland, right? It's a northern seaport, and then they put it on a truck and it goes down to Warsaw, and then it goes on another truck, and it goes from Warsaw all the way to up to Kyiv. And one of the questions I got last week when I gave this talk to the Southern Arizona DX Association is, hey, the Polish border was blocked by the truckers. What happened to your boxes, right? Yeah, they sat there for freaking 3 weeks, right? And so I couldn't get my shipments through there. But 3 weeks was better than most of them, because that line was like 20 kilometers long. There's thousands of trucks there, so I don't even know how they got through. But we managed to get things there. About 3 months ago, and the shipping's been expensive. I'm not going to kid you. It's a little bit onerous. But I got a little bit of relief on that. Through Facebook, I met a new Ukrainian friend up in Phoenix, and he's associated with a church that uses their nonprofit staffs to collect donations, and they use some of that cash to ship our stuff over there. So now all I have to do is ship to Phoenix for $20. I can get 10 kilograms of material up to Phoenix for $20 with the U.S. Post Office, and then thank goodness they'll take care of shipping. Okay. All right, so I am going to hand out some parts. Okay. I would like to get the parts back if you don't mind. One of the bags has my business card in it, or my card really, because I'm not in business. And there's a description of the parts on a 3x5 note card in there. And then I'm also going to hand out a 7-meter long transmission line as well. If you've seen some pictures from over there, you know that a lot of these guys are working from a trench, right? And Ron, you had a question? Oh, I don't, but I can touch on that, sure. So Ron asked about my printer, and I'm going to put an S after that because there's printers, right? So I operate. So in the beginning, I started with an Ender 3, and an Ender 3 is a $200 printer. It does fine. It chugs along, but it just doesn't have all the features that you would see in a commercial print shop, right? And I started getting orders in the fall of 2022, like December and November, and I was trying to fill them using my Ender. It just wasn't enough. The Ender cost about $200, so I invested in a Prusa printer. It's the latest Prusa, and those are, it's a $650 kit. You import them. You pay an import tax of about $50 and a shipping of about $50. So they're about $750, $800 a piece. And they take about 12 hours to assemble. So I bought my first Prusa and started happily printing, and then the next order came in. And then the next order, I need 2 of these things. I can't keep up, man. So I ordered another Prusa, right? So I got 2 at that point, put it together, and more. I got more orders, right? So I better get a third, right? And then even more orders came in. Like I could not keep up. Crap! I just ordered 3 more. So now I have 6 printers, right? And the only way to organize 3 printers in my house is to purchase some U-line shelving, you know. So I spent like $400 on a cool shelving wrap that's like 7 feet tall. And then I went down to the plastic store. I said, I need to enclose these printers. Do you guys sell any plexiglass? And the salesman talked me into Lexan rather than plexiglass. So then I spent $400 on Lexan to cover it because the printers want to be. And this isn't about me just whining about all the costs I've incurred, but it's been fun, you know, to build up a little factory. So now I have 6 Prusa printers and I did actually start them at 10 o'clock yesterday on a 23.5-hour job, so they should be finishing up right now. They're still printing. So when I get home, I'll have 134 little pieces of candy to harvest off of my printers. So the printers have been an interesting technology, and I've gotten good at repairing them, adjusting them, and using them. Yeah, question back there. Go ahead. So that's a great question. He was asking, who designs the parts? Do the Ukrainians design them, or do I design them? The vast majority of it, like 95% of the stuff is designed by the Ukrainians. They send me an STL file that I print. A couple of things I've designed, a couple of simple things. I'm a pretty good mechanical designer, but they've done an outstanding job. Oh, you don't need to pass out that little colorful box. That's just my business cards. There's business cards in the in one of the bags. So yeah, go ahead and grab one. Sure. Yeah. Or you can just pass the box around. Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. Thank you. So, all right. So in terms of design, I might suggest modifications to the design to help them be more manufacturable. I've done that many times. Like, do you really need this feature because it's just too hard to print? So their design for manufacturing is okay, but having some feedback from the guy who does the process engineering, so we've collaborated. It's been fantastic. Yeah. So. Okay. Oh, another question. Yeah, go ahead, sir.
On the Yagi parts, what is the UV resistance of the plastic in the environment?
Yeah, great question. So the UV resistance of the plastic that I'm printing with, specifically applied to Yagi parts, right? It's very good. I'm printing with a material called PETG, Papa Echo Tango Golf. PETG is how we pronounce that in the in the industry. And I can say that I've been printing for 18 months. So they print with PETG, very good UV resistance. Ron will tell you about a test that he's running at home. He's printed a couple of different samples, and one of the samples after 40 minutes was in the UV of two sides, just sagged, and the PETG is still nice and straight. So it works pretty well. I can also print with a material called ASA, Alpha Sierra Alpha, excellent material, and I use that for the center insulator on my non-resonant dipole. Okay, question back there. The question is spray painting with an acrylic to enhance the UV resistance. It's a good idea, but you don't have to at all. Not needed, extra effort, and yeah, not needed, but good idea. So any other questions at this point? Yeah, back there. I do. And I'll talk about it. Yeah, so the question was, one of those parts that's going around is called a mechanical fuse, and what the heck is that used for? So I can talk to that. Remind me if I miss it, but I should touch on it. Yeah, good question. So that goes under the category of candy. Okay, yeah. And in fact, I didn't. So I got a T-shirt yesterday from the Ukrainians, and it has to do with candy. The front of it has some shell company name on it that they use for their candy factory. And then on the back, there's a picture of a drone, and there's a little, I don't know if they call them a mortar or something. It's got fins and a nose cone, right? And then drone's dropping something, and it says Ukrainian air delivery or something on the back. So I got a T-shirt after 18 months. All right, so back to antenna systems, transmission lines. The guy's in the trench, right? He's got a Motorola DP4400 radio. Could I ask you to turn your radio down, whoever's got it on? Great, thank you. So a transmission line, the guy's in the trench. He's using a Motorola DP4400, which is similar to your like Yaesu FT65, FT70D or so, non-encrypted. It's got a rubber duck on it. So how far are they going to get out, right, from a trench? Not very far. So we supply antenna systems which are not outstanding, right? But compared to being in a trench with a rubber duck, they do a hell of a lot better. So we supply a transmission line which is 7 meters long. I don't know why they picked that length. I've got one picture of a woman signalman, and she's kind of short, and they sent me the picture with the caption like, maybe the transmission lines can be a little bit longer, because she's in a trench and she's actually on her tiptoes, like trying to talk to the radio, because the radio is hanging from the transmission line. We didn't quite make them long enough, but anyway, so the 7 meter long transmission lines, let's talk about those a little bit. Those are RG58, right, from DX Engineering. My favorite company, become a good customer, and they ship me 500 spools of RG58, right? And so in my backyard I set up a bunch of these plastic tables measured out 7 meter lengths. Learned how to put on SMA connectors. God, I hate those things. They're really freaking hard to put on. But having a 3D printer, I can actually design and print some tooling to hold those connectors while I'm soldering them on. And I bought a nice digital microscope to do the soldering under, so I can actually do them really well now. But those were a bitch to learn. They were pretty tough. So 7 meter long transmission lines. There's a male SMA connector on one end, a female SMA connector on the other end. How do you get 100 of these puppies over to Ukraine, right? That's 100 times 7 meters. Let's say 7 meters is what, 25 feet? 100 lines, 2,500 feet of cable, right? How do you get that amount of cable over there? You use your 3D printer to design some tooling, right? So you design some tooling to coil these things, different diameters, right? So you start out by saying, I'm going to ship this in a 12 by 12 by 6 box, right? And the largest coil can have an outer diameter of 12 inches. And the inner diameter is governed by the RG58 bend radius, right? And I found I could actually roll these things and have 4 or 5 concentric rolls inside of each other, right? And roll them all up carefully and package the hell out of it. And I could get 500 feet of RG58 coax into a 12 by 12 by 6 box. I felt like, I looked at the first one, who can I share this accomplishment with, right? Because nobody will get this. I said, well, I'm going to have to wait for Quartzfest. But that felt like it. Well, thank you. That felt like an accomplishment. I appreciate the applause. That made it worth it. So that's the 7 meter long cables, and I've shipped, I don't know, 100 or a few hundred of those, something like that. The other transmission lines that I worked on also was a little pigtail, 250 millimeters long, and one of them went through there, and you saw a couple of ring terminals on one end. The ring terminals attached to a quarter wave vertical antenna that's comprised of two 25 millimeter tubes, right? It's vertical, so you've got one element on top of the other, and the ring terminals attached to the two separate tubes, right? And then on the other end is an SMA female connector. In fact, I can't remember how many of those I shipped, probably 100 or so. Any questions on transmission lines? No? Okay. Let's talk about antenna systems and omnidirectional antennas that we've worked on. There's actually 3 or 4 that we've worked on. By far the most prevalent one we worked on is a quarter wave dipole. It's made of 2 tubes split by an acrylic or a Delrin insulator in the center. And Dimitro's come up with a really nice design. This was Dimitro's design. The ground elements point down at 45 degrees, and they pivot on a pop rivet, and they're stopped by another pop rivet when they come down. So they'll actually fold up on the upper elements, and you can carry it as a really robust assembly. And I'm going to paint another picture for you. Okay, so imagine 5 or 6 servicemen in their camo stuff. You know, they're standing there and they've got their guns on them. Like, I mean, the big, not just these guns, but guns slinging across them. And they've got, and 4 of them are holding quarter wave vertical antennas, and attached to those antennas are the 7-meter long transmission lines. And I know they're my transmission lines that I built in Tucson, Arizona, because they're still wrapped up with the blue tape I got from Home Depot. Okay. So, but the amount of pride that I felt in that work and seeing, you know, the end customer getting the antenna, the end customer getting the 250 millimeter transmission line and the 7-meter transmission line, it almost brought tears to my eyes. I think that you can actually make a difference like this. It was amazing. And these guys, I should take one moment to note, these guys know that their country has a reputation for corruption and grift, right? And so they're very, very careful to build trust with me. They send me photographs of the boxes when they arrive, right? And I know they're my boxes because they've got, you know, my address and my shipping information on it, etc. They send me pictures from the front line of users using the antennas, the battery chargers, the candy. I'll paint another picture for you, okay? Take a hatchback sedan like a Subaru Outback with the hatch open, and there's some military guy in his fatigues standing by the hatch. And the Subaru's filled with cardboard boxes. And the cardboard boxes are open, and the one in the back is opened up, and you look at it and you say, hey, it's a United States Post Office flat rate mailing box from Tucson, Arizona, right? And he's got it open, right? And there are 250 nose cones in there that are green that came off of my printers, and he's assembling, you know, things that they're going to deliver to the Russians, right? So they're very careful to culture a sense of trust. I mean, I know that there's news about us shipping armaments over there and nobody knows where they went, or we're not keeping track of the stuff, but my impression is they're doing their best, and they certainly have developed trust with me because I know that the stuff that I ship is going to the front line. So yeah, question, go ahead.
The fact that all of your identification is attached to the stuff that you send, does that worry you about some Russian operative arriving at your house someday? And
right. So good question. So the question is, you know, I've shipped things. It's got my home address on it. Yeah, my name and address, my call, it's all over this project, right? Am I worried? Not at all. Not at all. Not at all. I mean, I'm such a small fish in the whole sea. I'm not producing Javelin missiles, TOW missiles, Stinger missiles, or AMRAAMs, right? I used to work on that stuff, but
you're making them work.
Yeah, I'm not. I think they've got bigger fish to fry. Yeah, I'm not really worried about that. Okay, so that's the quarter wave vertical. Very cool design. Go ahead. So I will describe these as being either VHF or UHF, and the quarter wave, without giving you specific frequencies, but the quarter wave vertical is, I think, literally all of it's VHF. Yeah, we haven't made a UHF one. They're making the elements themselves out of aluminum. That's right. And I got another photograph from Dimitro about 4 months ago, and it was a picture of another cardboard box, not from me, but from his machinist. It was full of aluminum tubes, right? And literally, I'll quote him, he said, "So happy today, 100 pre-cutted aluminum tubes." So he was one happy camper.
So somebody else like you is doing the aluminum tubes?
He, you know, I don't know where he gets the rest of the supply chain, except most of it's locally sourced. I don't think he has another United States source like me. The aluminum stuff he has done in Ukraine. He also used aluminum flat bar stock for the ground radials, and those are sourced in Ukraine as well. But for a while, you know, another interesting question is where was he getting his coax, right? Because the Ukrainian manufacturer of RG58 was shut down for a while. So he was bugging me, like, where the hell is my transmission lines? Can you accelerate? Can you get it faster? Because they didn't have any coax. One of the other vertical antennas that is used is a 5/8 wave, and that's actually in the UHF that they do. Those are built in Zaporizhia by Nick. And one of the parts that went around the room was the 5/8 waves hub. Extremely clever design, The bottom provides 4 screws where you bolt on an SO239. There's grooves around the outer diameter of the base for a coil. And as you probably know, a 5/8 wave is sort of imperfect design that has an SWR of maybe 1.7-ish or so. It works pretty well, but it can be made better with a capacitor. So they actually designed in a capacitor out of some brass strips that gets attached to that hub as well. And then that hub also holds the center radiator and the 4 ground radials. And it can be assembled in a matter of maybe 20 minutes or so. It's just an unbelievable design. So the advice that I got from Dimitro is this shit needs to be cheap as snow and assembled by my grandma. You know, that's right. So, because they make hundreds of these, right? And one of the other questions I have gotten is, you know, what about the robustness of these designs? Because some of the stuff doesn't look very strong, right? And how long will it last? And well, that's not very strong. Or can you make it out of better material? Or how, you know, like the UV question that you had. You know, how is it going to survive the UV? And the advice that I got from Dimitro is like, this thing may not survive 2 weeks. You know, it might be run over, shot up, lost, broken, may not make it to the front line. I mean, there's all sorts of failure modes. And now I want you to picture one of those quarter wave verticals, right? And there's nobody in the picture, and you can hear a generator, you know, grinding away in the background. And you look, the camera pans up to one of the ground radials, right? And it's kind of bent, right? And it's kind of discolored. Then it goes up the ground radial, and then you notice the upper radiating element has this jagged hole in it, right? And it's one of his antennas that got blown up, basically. And we think the antenna would work fine, except the camera pans down to the transmission line, and the transmission line is just toast. You know, so you just couldn't make it work. So you got that one back. So in terms of longevity, these things don't need to last that long, weeks, you know, months. But we've got pictures of them on houses and trees. I get videos from the front line of somebody speaking Ukrainian. I have no idea what he's saying, but the tone seems to be appreciative, and his antenna's up in the tree, and he's pointing to it. And then the Ukrainians are really known for this thumbs up right at the end of the video, you know, so you know it's good. The other last antenna that we worked on that's omnidirectional is a dipole vertical, just a simple dipole with no ground radials. One of the motivation for that was cost, right? Because the Ukrainian government is not reimbursing Dimitro for this, right? He actually tries to sell these antennas to the servicemen. And when I say sell, I should put that in quotes. He's really looking for donations to help defray his costs. And these guys don't have a lot of money, right? Let me paint another picture, right? I told you I used blue tape. Dimitro sent me a picture from his laboratory in Rig Expert, right? And he's putting together all these, battery chargers at this point. But I look on the right-hand side of the wall, and the wall is full of scraps of blue tape from Home Depot in Tucson, right? The guy's saving my blue tape, right, to reuse it. He's that thrifty. I mean, or that hard up for material, whatever. So the dipole vertical was motivated by money. We need a cheaper antenna that we could deliver to them. We fielded a couple copies. We really haven't gotten much feedback on it. Kind of a failure, but it works pretty well. We actually tested it in Tucson. And Ron, I think you helped me do some of those tests. So we've actually done gain tests on some of these antennas. And one of the problems with the vertical dipole, you could imagine, is how do you get the transmission line away from it, right? Because the transmission line is going to come right down next to one of the elements, and that must affect it. So the antenna must be crap, right? That's what you would think. Remember, the antenna only needs to be a lot better than that rubber duck down in the trench. And so we actually took, Ron helped me run a receiver, and I actually rotated that vertical dipole 360 degrees in azimuth, and it was actually fairly omnidirectional and had almost the gain of a quarter wave dipole. So not quite as good, but it worked out fine. Yes? So that was for the VHF. Yeah. So it'd be like a 2-meter type of vertical dipole. We've also built Yagi antennas, lots of Yagi antennas. And I have two customers for Yagi antennas, Nick down in Zaporizhia and then Dimitro in Kyiv. Nick builds multi-band Yagis that are both VHF and UHF for the Ukrainian Army. And I think you saw some of the Yagi antenna elements that we have, that I printed. So like hundreds of those, or if not thousands of Yagi antennas. And then battery chargers. Okay, so battery chargers are really a big deal. Well, when I started down this path, like I thought maybe antennas I could help them with a little bit, but battery chargers, they were just never on the radar screen, right? But if you think about it, right, again, you're in a trench. You've got a Motorola DP4400 that's got a 7.4 volt lithium batteries. Like, where do you plug in to charge? Where do you go? There's like 220 volt outlets to charge. There's nothing, right? But these guys have cell phones and they've got tablets and they're able to keep those charged. And they're charging those with portable batteries and voltage adjusters, I'll say, that get it to that 5 volt USB voltage. So how could we use that 5 volt source or a USB source to charge the Motorola radio, right? That's really the question. So they designed this clever little device, and one of them went through the crowd. Imagine the back of your handheld, right? And it's got those battery contacts on the back. And on the side of your handheld radio, there's little grooves. And those normally you put into the holster on your shelf, right? They charge. So those little grooves are what we use to install a small little device that went around to charge the battery. And so inside of that device is a small circuit card, and we were buying them from China, or I bought hundreds of those from China. They're about 70 cents a piece, and they actually boost the voltage from 5 volts, so it's a USB-C connector. They boost the voltage from 5 volts to 7.4, and that's what the radio needs. So we thought we were golden, right? So we shipped hundreds of those. In fact, last year we fielded 2,700 of those to the Ukrainian servicemen. And just a side note, Dimitro has a funny story. He sent me a video of him filling up a backpack with all of our battery chargers. And the caption was, "I feel like a drug mule around Kyiv delivering these things," because he's running around with a backpack. So the Chinese circuit card's installed. We fielded 2,700. The problem that we had is now you've got 3 or 4 servicemen charging radios in the trench, right? And the 5th guy is trying to listen, and he can't hear anything because there's like S9 noise coming out of these crappy Chinese voltage boosters, right? So that's the problem we ran into. We realized that like October or November of last year, maybe a little bit before that, September. And one of the Ukrainian electrical engineers there redesigned the circuit card. Great job, got all the noise out. The cost went up, so they're about $2.50 a piece. And right now, in terms of battery chargers, this new design, I've shipped 2,000 sets of material over to Ukraine. The last set went out this week, but Dimitro's having trouble getting the improved circuit cards. There's one source of them. He's Ukrainian. He's trying to test them all, and he can only deliver about 20 to 30 a week. We can consume them a lot faster than that. So the point of the story is there's evolution. I mean, this war has gone on so long, we're actually evolving some of these designs based on our experience. So, and then candy. That's the last topic I wanted to cover this morning. So last, probably August or September, I got introduced to the candy group, the drone group. And some of the more easier to understand applications are, I think you've heard of first-person view drones, right? Where the guy wears a goggle and it's as if he's the pilot on the drone, right? But these first-person view displays consume a lot of power, right? So you need a pretty hefty battery to run them because they're going to be running them, all day when they're flying all day. So they asked me to print battery holders that clip onto somebody's headband that you can put a LiPo battery in, right? So printed, 40 of those, got them over there. they want longer range on their drones. One of the problems that they run into, I'm sure you've heard, is the Russians are jamming a lot of the frequencies for the drones, so they need stronger signals to get out to the drones. So they needed better antennas. So I printed a couple hundred antenna mounts for the first-person view drones. I think you saw a nose cone go through so I printed hundreds of nose cones. Which brings me to the mechanical fuse, right? That's an interesting design. I received that January 3rd. Of this month, and this week, let me see here, I shipped 600 sets in a box, and there's 4 parts per set or per assembly, so it's 2,400 parts in a box, and I've shipped since January 3rd. I got the design on the 3rd, and I've already shipped 4,800 parts. So there's 4,800 parts in Phoenix waiting to be going across, and I've got to get 6 more boxes out by the end of February. Yeah, question. So the question was, are these assemblies or do I ship over individual parts that are assembled? More often than not, I ship over, actually before this month, I've always shipped over individual parts and they've done the assembly over there. This time, however, the parts assemble really nicely, and if I assemble them, I can fit more in the box, right? And so I assemble them in my house, and it's a cool process. You actually press one of the parts into the other beyond a mechanical detent, and then they won't separate again. And so I did that by hand for a while, but being a process engineer, I could see the variability in me, squeezing them by hand. And so I purchased an arbor press, right? And the arbor press worked pretty well, but then again, me being a process engineer, I wanted to get more variation out of it, so I hired a machine shop to modify the arbor press, putting a couple of tapped holes in it. So now I have an anvil that holds the bottom part exactly where I need it. And I think out of 600 parts, I might throw away 1 or 2. So I got really good yield on that process. So in this case, the 600 assemblies or 2,400 parts in each box, those I assemble in Tucson. So, and I think there was one. So those were green. There was a green mechanical fuse, and then there was a safety clip on it, and that safety clip actually has to flex a little bit. So I printed that out of PET-G, which is a little bit more flexible than PLA. So. Also, in terms of candy, I printed just a variety of parts that I don't know what they are. I don't necessarily ask either. Some of them I can kind of derive what they're for, but some of them, like one of them I nicknamed the choo-choo train because I have no idea what it is, but it looks like a little toy train, so I have to come up with names because I can't, some of the parts I can't translate from Ukrainian, So. Yeah, question over here.
It's hard to imagine you doing all of this yourself. Do you have a cadre of volunteers that help you with this?
A great question. So when you 3D print things, sometimes there's extra material that you have to add during the printing process. If you're a 3D printer out here, it's called support, right? If you're not, it's like temporary structure that holds the part in place while you print, and then you have to remove it, right? And each removal process does take time. So last summer I went to the Ukrainian church, right? And you would think this would be a good place to recruit Ukrainians, and I got 0. I got nothing, right? Nothing, yeah. But then I got in touch with like a refugee ministry group, and these are volunteers that want to help, right? And so I actually have a group of 6 or 7 volunteers now, and they help me remove support, which has been a huge help. This shipment of battery charger parts, both of the parts need support removed, and they just finished it last week, and so we shipped 2,000 sets or 4,000 parts for battery chargers during January, and I did have that help. But in terms of the 3D printing, it's just me in my house. But there are other people in the United States doing this. I know of one in Phoenix, one in New Jersey, and that's pretty much all I know.
Maybe you had to add space to your house to do all this.
No, I had to go vertical in the sense that I went to Uline and I purchased a really nice wire shelving rack, right? I wish I had a picture of it, but you could imagine 4 shelves, and the bottom shelf there's 3 printers. The shelf above that holds the filament, right? And the filaments in plastic boxes, individual plastic boxes with desiccant, because during the summer I run a swamp cooler, right? And the filament's got to be kept dry. So I've got three printers on the bottom shelf, 3 boxes of filament, and then you reproduce it for the next 2 shelves. So I've got 6. So it's pretty compact. But I've got like 150 rolls of filament stocked, and I've got a shipping center and packing boxes from Uline and shipping tape. So yeah, I've got a lot of these 4-foot plastic tables that I set up for little mini projects. So, any other questions? Yeah.
When you fill out your customs forms, you don't get any pushback on what you're saying on the form for emissions or anything?
You guys have some great questions. Thank you. Yeah. So from an emotional sense, right, I can track these boxes, right? I can see where they are, if they're floating across the Atlantic, if they're in Gdansk or Warsaw, or if they're Ukraine customs, right? And after 70 boxes, I'll tell you honestly, I still worry about getting my stuff through customs. And I do have to fill out 2 customs forms. I think one goes to Ukraine Express, or maybe one goes to Poland Customs and the other goes to Ukraine. I honestly don't know, but I do worry about it, right? The description I use is 500 green small plastic parts. Can't argue, right? You open up the box, they might be nose cones, but they're green and they're plastic. So, but I do. That's one thing I do worry about is getting this stuff through customs. But the Ukrainians don't worry about it. After 70 boxes, I shouldn't worry about it. The process seems to be working. So, yeah, question back there. So the question is, are some of these parts export controlled by the Department of State? So I have thought about that, and I've had that sort of export control training from Raytheon when I worked there, and I'm comfortable shipping these as plastic parts, which is how they're declared. Yeah. I mean, great question, and certainly it's in a gray area, right? But I'm shipping out small plastic parts, and that's what the documentation says. Yeah, question. How many printers do you have? Tens of thousands of parts seems like a lot. You must be very busy. Check, check, and check. Yes. These things run 24/7. Yeah. I have 6 printers. Yeah. And I could keep up pretty much. Of course, Prusa came out with new printers that are faster and better, and of course much more expensive. And there's other ones, but my printers do pretty well. And being a process engineer. And I will tell you, I was also a certified Six Sigma black belt, so my process engineering control is really, really good. It's one of the things in life I'm good at. So I've got all of the waste out of the process, right? And I literally, I can keep 6 printers running 23 and a half hours out of 24. So, Ron. Right, so like a batch of printers, you saw those small clips that went on the mechanical fuse. It was a gray little clip on there. I print 72 in a batch, and that batch might take 6 hours or so. So I can knock out, hundreds of. Other stuff's a little bit larger; it takes longer. But I think I'm up to about 43,000 parts or so. But you can get there because you can get dozens on a plate. Like the job that's finishing up today was 24 hours for 134 parts. Yeah, question.
So you have cameras, you can watch those 6 printers?
Do I have cameras so I can watch the 6 printers? A Zoom call would do it. Yeah. I don't. But I'll tell you that yesterday I was in Phoenix visiting my new Ukrainian friend Victor, who's doing the shipping for me. He has brand new printers. And not only does he have a camera to view them, but the camera's inside of the printer, right? But wait, it gets better than that. Let's say there's 50 parts, right? And 50 parts, he showed me this. He's got like 100 parts. There's 10 by 10. Little parts going on. They look like little chess pieces. And the 57th part in the upper right-hand corner had gotten knocked over, right? And so you would think, oh, so I get 99 rather than 100. No, because the printer will still try to print there, and it's going to print in air, and it's going to have a bunch of goop on the nozzle. It's going to F your job, right? So you're kind of screwed. Well, his printer's new, it's networked, it's got some artificial intelligence, right? And so he can actually look at it and say, hey, skip that part, and he can do that from his smartphone. It's pretty cool. I can't do that. But the technology is there, right? I haven't invested in it. So.
You must get up a lot in the middle of the night.
So I must get up a lot in the middle of the night. You're right. Sometimes I do. But not really, because I before I go to bed, I look at my jobs and how much filament I have left, right? And I kind of judge, am I going to make it through the night, right? Weight gets better than that. I know what the empty weight of the plastic boxes and everything in there, including a spool. So while it's running, I can put a scale under it, weigh it, right? Put it into a spreadsheet and calculate how many hours of filament is left, right? So I know if I'll make it through the night. So generally, I'm pretty good about that, where I'll check and make sure. I have gotten lazy and forgotten, and I get waken up and my printers do chirp at me, and they'll wake me up when they need to be fed. But in general, I have them running through the night. Yeah, they're in the next room. It's kind of peaceful to hear these little guys kind of churn away. So
Were you married?
I think I can skip that question. I'm not. No. Any other questions? Yeah.
What happened to your electric bill?
You know, the electric bill. That's a great question. Each of these printers draws. Well, of more concern to me was getting the electricity through my 50-year-old junction box on the side of my house. Right, the box was probably put in the early 70s. And so I actually ran an extension cord from all the printers to another room where I knew there was newer wiring. So I have an extension cord going into the bathroom to get on the bathroom circuit, so it's not on the same circuit. But each printer only draws, I think, a couple of amps. And it's not that much. You're heating up a bed with some a bed that's 10 by 10 inches or so to about 90 degrees C, and you're heating up a really tiny little nozzle to 250 degrees C. So the amount of volume that you're heating isn't that much, and then the stepper motors I don't think draw that much. So the total current budget's a couple of amps per printer. Yeah.
So what's your maintenance routine? Nozzles wearing out, or
right. So
calibrations.
Luckily, so what's the maintenance routine? Luckily, a lot of the replacement parts are easily available on Amazon, right? So I can get them the next day. So I've replaced fans, nozzles, lubricating. So fans need to become replaced because they have bearings that go out. The nozzles are actually pretty good. They don't get plugged or I just throw them out before they get bad. They're so cheap. I get 20 nozzles for $7, right? So they're cheap. There's a little thing called a heat break. I've broken a couple of those. Those are about $12 a piece. So it's more rather than preventative maintenance, it's more just fixing things that get broken. But they don't. The uptime is well over 95%. I mean, it's just sort of my intuition. They're really pretty good. So I haven't had a lot of downtime. Yeah, Ron. Oh yeah. So what? I should say first, the purpose of my talk isn't here for fundraising. Okay, that isn't why I'm here. Some of my friends, though, they have said, how can I help? You seem to be doing something that's useful. Your product actually seems to get to the front line. How can I help? And so what I've done then is I've given them a link to Amazon or to Overture 3D or some filament suppliers. If you want to throw me a handful of rolls of filament. The filament that I ran through the audience, I generally pay about $20 a roll, 15 to $20 a roll, and a couple of my friends have gotten on and just throwing me a handful of rolls of filament. So that would be useful. One of my volunteers, super generous, literally brought tears to my eyes last week. She brought me a check for $1,000. So that was because I mean the shipping it really got to my budget. So, any other questions? That's kind of all I have. So, what? Sorry. Oh, thank you. Appreciate the feedback. Yeah, thanks. Okay, I do have some pictures up here on a poster. You're welcome to take a look at it if you want. So thanks for coming this morning. Appreciate it.